Welcome to GamesRadar. I'm Zoe and I'm here with Leon talking about his review of Vampyr. So, first off, in Vampyr you obviously play as a vampire. What's it like?
Weirdly, like a lot of it is kind of trying not to be a vampire. It does this really interesting thing right at the beginning, which is like, it says like this game is going to be a lot easier if you eat people. Like, it basically tells you like, if you eat people and use the XP to level up, it's going to be a lot easier. And it's like this weird reverse psychology. I think almost everyone like reads that message and then goes like, well, I'll be a good vampire. I won't go around chewing people up. And then you discover like it is a lot harder if you don't eat people. So it does that thing of like when you see vampire movies and like even like sort of TV and stuff where they do that whole kind of like being a vampire is this constant temptation of like, you know, eating people will make you more powerful, or you know, you need to. And then this does it in like a quite a mechanical gameplay kind of way, because the XP that you use to level up, you can get maybe 2,000-3,000 XP for about an hour and a half of playing. If you do some missions and roll around, you can get that from like one person in one go. So if you don't eat people, you have to work harder to level up. So the whole time you're playing it, you are going like, it would just be easier to eat people. But it makes you pay for it in that the Spanish flu is running rife through this sort of 19th century London, and if you eat people, and it has an adverse effect on the district. So if you eat too many people, you make the district sicker. So it's not just about your morals, like it's about whether or not you affect London. But it's a really nice way of like, what if being a vampire has some physical ramification on you as a gamer, not just the character in the thing.
Mm-hmm. Obviously a big thing that they try to do is the dialogue and helping you decide who you're going to kill or spare or whatever. So How does the dialogue work exactly? How does it feel to play it?
It's a dialogue wheel. You meet someone and you are going yes, no, left, right, answering questions. You usually have like there are like mission critical options. We have like 3 options, which is usually like a good, a bad, and a third that you can unlock by poking around. And it's a very like investigative game. Like the more you talk to people, the more hints you'll unlock about other people, and you'll find out maybe this guy's related to that guy or he's friends with that person. You can also like find letters and books and things in drawers that might give you a hint. Like there's a guy. For example, basically, the more you poke around, the more you find out about people. So there's a guy you meet early on who's like a big thug. He's knocking around on doors, like getting like protection money, and you think he's a nasty man. And if you poke around enough, you find out about his son, and then you can sort of ask his son some questions. Once you've got in there, you can find a letter in a drawer that is like job applications that he's failed to get, and you discover that like he's not being this sort of gang bruiser because he wants to be. It's because he can't get work and he desperately wants to make a better life for his son, and so he's taking the only work he can find. And then you're like, well, if I had chewed him like the first time I met him, I wouldn't have known about this. But then you discover like, oh, actually he's a bit of a victim. He's a bit sort of he's on hard times. He's not really his fault kind of thing. And so you're always poking around and trying to find stuff. And like I always felt like I hadn't quite got the full story, so I'm like being a bit sort of Batman-y and just constantly doing like detective work trying to find out more.
I mean, as well as there are like normal NPCs that you can kill them and it will have some effect on the other ones in the relationship, there are also pillars of the community, and it's a much bigger deal if you kill them, right?
Yes, so there's 4 main districts, and I'm going to forget now. I think it's Dockyards, Whitechapel, somewhere else, and somewhere else.
Okay.
But there's like 4 districts that form like large areas of the map, and they all have, I'm not sure, there's 20 plus people in each area that are like named characters outside of like combat and like battle bits. Everyone is like has a name, they have relationships, they have meanings. The pillars are like the ones who they are pillars of the community, and that's what the pillar stands for. So there's like a nurse who runs like a backstreet clinic treating sick people. There's a guy who runs like a kind of a homeless shelter, and they are, for better or for worse, holding their kind of region together. And if you kill them, I mean, you could, in theory, some of them, you could kill them without even realising they are the pillar. I think it tells you pretty soon on, but you could sort of, without, if you're not paying attention, you're just talking to someone and you go, oh, they got a lot of XP, they'll be nice, and then suddenly you've taken that pillar away. And that has a massive effect on the area, and in different ways. So the nurse, if for example something was to happen to her clinic's gone, everyone starts to get sicker, the whole district and area gets sicker. There's someone else, I won't say who, but they they have become like a kind of a slightly bad vampire, and if you let them live, then everyone else starts getting like vampirized, and so it's not always a case of like letting them live is good. Sometimes you do have to kill them, but it depends how much you've learnt by poking around.
Is it quite smooth, the dialogue? Because obviously if finding out information is a big deal, you'd want to be talking to MCs to feel effortless and etc, etc.
Talking to them is good. It works like it is just a dialogue wheel. You're moving like round the hands of the clock with your stick. The one thing I don't like that really annoyed me was, normally when you're playing a dialogue based game, you read the line quicker than they say it on the screen and you skip to the next line. If you do that in Vampyr, it'll just cut their whole answer off, so you have to basically just sit there and like wait for them to finish, or you don't get to hear what they say. You'll get any hints and things will pop up, but you sort of lose the atmosphere of it. It's a really weird way of doing it, where it doesn't just like skip each line after you've read it. It just stops them dead and comes back to you. But otherwise, it's you're just talking and chatting, and it highlights the hints you've uncovered. It tells you if there's more hints to find, and you can see the effects of your conversation on like their XP. Like the more hints you unlock, the more XP you'd get from them if you killed them. So it works well, bar that one annoying bit.
Yeah, so for all the lovely / annoying / morally dubious NPCs walking around, they're obviously enemies which you have to fight using your vampire skills or melee attacks. So what's the combat like in it?
Combat is good. It's functional, but not quite. It's not quite like as sharp. I think the biggest problem Vampyr is going to have is everyone's going to be playing it more or less for the back of God of War if they're kind of going from one big release to the next.
That is a difficult game to compare it to.
But it's good. It's like combo. Sorry, not combo. It's like you have a dodge move. You have like a main hand and an offhand weapon, or you can have a two-handed weapon, which is what I've been using a lot of. But you can attack. You have a stun weapon, and if you stun them enough, you can bite them. That will feed your blood meter, which powers your special attacks. The one thing I found is the stamina runs out quite quickly, so I boosted my stamina with my leveling up like quite quickly. That gives you more sort of chances to hit before you need to take a break. And it works well. It's nice when you get like, it's one of those combat systems where when you do a bunch of really cool moves and you're like, you feel great, and then someone hits you from behind and then it all gets a bit button mashy and you can't quite get back on it. So it works. It's a little bit fuzzy in places, especially against the bosses. When you got like really heavy hitting enemies, you only got to mess up once and you're in trouble, and then you really feel the sort of the lack of precision.
Yeah.
But it's functional and it's solid and it does what it needs to do without necessarily being like, oh my god, this is amazing.
So what are your final thoughts on Vampyr then?
I like it. It's one of those weird, slightly kind of clunky games that you sort of love anyway, and when you're trying to explain it to people, you go, oh, this is really good, this is really good, the combat's a bit broken, this is really good, the dialogue doesn't quite work, this is really good, oh, it's a bit of a pain because there's no fast travel. And it's one of those weird games that even through all its flaws, it's just got some really nice ideas. This sort of concept of like making your path to sort of vampiric godhood actually have tangible kind of consequences, and it's just a really nice proper like gothic vampire thing. They're all sort of these sort of languid 19th century aristocrats who are all a bit kind of like morose, but not too sad, but sort of a little bit sad about being a vampire, but not quite. And you're having all these conversations a bit like mahogany libraries on like leather armchairs. It's that kind of vampire thing, very Bram Stokery, and it's really interesting and well done despite its flaws.
So how many stars out of 5 are you going to give it?
3.5.
Nice, awesome. So that's our review of Vampyr. Let us know what you think of the game in the comments below. Click the box on the left for more content from us, and don't forget to hit that big button in the middle for more gaming news, reviews, previews and features right here on GamesRadar Plus.